All right. Hey, everybody. This is Asher, and I'm one of the founders of Partnership Leaders. And we have a pretty awesome session. And before we start the session, I would love to make a safe harbor statement because of the stuff that we're going to talk about in this session. Just kidding. So it's my pleasure to, talk a little bit about ecosystem-led growth and some of the latest trends in go-to-market with Sam and Bob. I've known them both for a while now. And so we're looking for a friendly but conversation. This could go out as a debate. We don't know yet, so you're all going to get it all live. But before we start, let's do a quick round of intros. Sam, do you want to take us away?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thanks to John and Nicole and the entire Tackle team. I'm a huge fan of Tackle and all the work that you do, and I'm also a fan of Partnership Leaders and Crossbeam. And I'm the CEO of Pavilion. Pavilion's the leading community for revenue executive CEOs and founders, and we've got 10,000 members all over the world. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Super, Bob.
Hey everybody, Bob Moore. I'm the CEO and co-founder over here at Crossbeam. Crossbeam is a very complementary technology to Tackle. You can think of us as almost like an escrow service for data. So we basically help companies that are partnered with each other figure out where their data sets intersect, answering questions like, are my sales reps currently selling to any of the same companies as your sales reps? Or how many customers do we have in common and who are they? We're this very secure intermediate data layer that unlocks a whole universe of motions that you might want to undertake if you're trying to create go-to-market wins through your partner ecosystem. And I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of that, but huge supporters of Partnership Leaders and Pavilion, and also kind of spiritually aligned with Tackle in a lot of really good ways around this ecosystem-led growth movement. So excited to be here.
Well, the folks at Tackle are saying they've got us covered the safe harbor statement, so we're good.
Nice.
All right, so for folks who don't know me, I'm the CEO of Partnership Leaders. We are the leading community for partnerships folks. Our mission is to elevate partnerships around the world. We have 1,500 members now and growing, and huge inspiration from both Pavilion and from Crossbeam. And so thank you for partnering with us on this journey, and big support. Thank you for big support from the folks at Tackle. So let's get down straight into it, right? Bob, what's happening in the marketplace and why is everybody talking about ELG?
What's happening in the marketplace is like the question of all questions in 2023. So there's a lot going on. I think maybe the smartest thing to do is to just start with what ELG actually is and kind of how we think about it and define it. As it should be, it's actually a really simple concept. ELG is really just the go-to-market motions of using your partner ecosystem to create growth. That's it. And the beauty of ELG is that when done right, it applies at every stage of your funnel, from lead generation all the way down to customer expansion and basically everywhere in between. Because the influence and impact of partners from your ecosystem into your deal funnel can not only be responsible for the origination of new deals, which is something people historically think about when they think partners, but these new evolutions in how people co-sell and cross-sell, how people grow accounts together through kind of joint value statements, and ultimately how people think about a more complete, comprehensive customer lifetime value story that's impacted by the existence of an ecosystem. These things are all lifted and elevated in ways that, frankly, even as little as 5 years ago, weren't necessarily possible because a lack of technology and a lack of data were standing in the way. So, the market at large, when you zoom out a little bit from just the partnership stuff, is obviously really challenged right now. We're in this spot where tech valuations have taken a massive hit, and that hit seems to be sustained, right? And not a transitory thing. I think it's obviously correlated to interest rates, but not going to go back to where it was, even if interest rates are to taper down over the couple of years to come here at all. And what that leaves us with is a lot of the playbooks that we think of as big winners in the world of growth are suddenly challenged in a non-zero interest rate environment. Things as simple as cold calling, outbound emailing, for example, reaching a point of commoditization, mass market saturation, where not only is the arbitrage kind of sucked out of them, but the expenses associated with doing them kind of make the ROI story more upside down than it's ever been. You think about AI and its influence on things like content generation, efforts that might exist around, one-to-one communication with customers or SEO strategies, anything in that traditional inbound playbook. Again, there, a lot of the arbitrage of being a company that does that particularly well is kind of mitigated by the entrance of these new technologies and motions. And, we all know what's going on in the regulatory world with GDPR and CCPA and the crushing effect that has on paid advertisements and the ability for people to purchase ads and do, a lot of the traditional even ABM playbook as a way to generate pipeline and nurture leads along their opportunity stages. So, you take away ads, you take away inbound, you take away outbound, and what are you really left with? And the answer that we continually arrive at is ecosystems. They're awesome. The partner ecosystems, they're proprietary because your ecosystem's unique and exclusive to your company. They're differentiated because no competitor can or will perfectly replicate your ecosystem, right? And it's your investments in growing that ecosystem that generate relationships and connective tissue that's bespoke to your company. It's scalable because your ecosystem increases in scope and impact as your company grows. It's measurable because it generates all of this really great attributable high quality sources of revenue that can be tied back to specific actions that are taking. And probably most important in this environment, it's efficient, right? Because it's proven to convert faster and better than other motions, higher deal values, larger, more sustainable ROI. It doesn't scale by throwing more advertising dollars at it or throwing more raw human horsepower at it. There's incredible leverage in ecosystem development. And I'm probably preaching to the choir on this panel and in this audience saying these things, but I think these are all the reasons why the momentum has really, really powerfully shifted in the direction of these ELG tactics in the last few years. And frankly, I think we're only at the beginning of what we're going to see in that movement.
So let's move to Sam. So Sam, would the revenue folks that you hang out with and love agree?
What'd you say, Asher?
I say, would the revenue folks that you hang out with and love agree?
The smart ones would. Yeah, that's. I think everything Bob said. I mean, this is why the panel. You said, I think in the comments, Asher, that you're hoping that we disagree, and disagreeing is good. I don't.
This is exactly that's why we put this thing on.
I
think you're wrong about so many things in your personal life, but as it relates to
I've got a really stupid haircut. I think that we can all agree on that.
Here's what I'll say. No, I just want to underscore what Bob said, which is that what everybody in the go-to-market organization is talking about right now is exactly what Bob said, which is that in a world of liberal and free access to capital where money is free, you can throw bodies and really capital, bodies in the form of capital on behalf of your investors. You can throw them at a problem and it doesn't really matter. And any growth is growth. And so, if you have a team of 100 sellers, and only half of them are attaining quota, and even at that quota, you set the quota too low because it was a tight labor market and you were worried about your ability to attract and retain good account executive talent. Maybe that works if you can squeeze out an incremental 10% of growth, but it doesn't work in a world where capital is constrained and where businesses are mandated to be efficient in their growth, which is, there's probably people in the audience, and I certainly would count myself one of them, as somebody saying that's probably the way that it should have been the whole time. Well, it wasn't that way for a period of time because of COVID and because of zero interest rates and free money. But now we're in a period where you can't just throw money at a problem. And one of the things that we're realizing, and one of the things that smart revenue leaders are realizing, and I've talked about this a lot on social media, I'll be giving a keynote about it next week at the Ascent conference in San Francisco, is the idea of what's old is new again. And I talk about this new world of revenue generation. And what does that really mean? That just means that SDRs are becoming less effective, hiring large groups of account executives that have middling quota attainment that your buyers don't really want to talk to because they don't have a lot of knowledge about the industry. That's becoming less effective. And so everybody is in search of more efficient mechanisms to growth. And that's why partnerships, ecosystems, PLG for product-led growth, it's all of this. It's not necessarily, although I truly am a strong believer in ecosystem-led growth for a bunch of reasons. And I think what Bob mentioned is the most important reason, perhaps, is not just the new revenue, but is the entirety of the customer lifetime value perception that you have, where you have customers that churn less because they are integrated across a variety of different partners. And as a consequence, you can have them for longer. But I think fundamentally, it's just about, hey, this old world of hiring tons and tons of people because we all read one book, Predictable Revenue, and thinking that we can just deploy tons and tons of human capital against a problem is the strategy for growth. It just doesn't work when growth has to be efficient growth, not just growth at any cost. So what everybody in my world is talking about is, what are the paths that we can use to drive more efficient growth? And frankly, how do we make sure that we're not alone? Because the other thing that happens in a world where capital is free is everybody wants to be, everybody's saying, no, I'll buy you. And everyone, no, I'll buy you. And all of us are going to be the preeminent players in every single industry category. And I think one of the benefits of a capital constrained world and a more difficult economy is that we all realize we need to focus on our ICP. We need to focus on what we're good at and what solution we can deliver to a customer with a problem. And then we can partner with people that deliver ancillary or related solutions that aren't directly competitive with ours. And even for my company, Pavilion, we are partners with partnership leaders. I don't view, there's a different world where Pavilion is for every single person in the world. The world that I live in, I'm partnered with Winning by Design on go-to-market consulting, and to make sure that Jocko and I are completely aligned. We're partnered with Insight Partners. We're partnered with partnership leaders. We're partnered with Crossbeam. We're not going to do everything. We're going to do one thing and then build alliances and relationships that will be mutually supportive and collaborative. So I think the headline is more efficient growth. And I think ecosystems and partnerships are one of the best ways to do it. But any way that we can find to attract and retain a great customer and do so cheaply, I think is going to be top of the list right now for not just heads of revenue, but heads of finance and CEOs.
So I'm going to take this slightly different, and feel free to not answer this question, right? But you've also had your own journey in understanding how your own company goes down the path of efficient growth. And I was there for parts of it. I can add some color to it, but we want to talk a little bit about like how you learned about how partnerships work.
Well, I mean, again, it's the movement from, and we raised money in 2021. And when you get a big slug of money and all of a sudden you're worth X, and you thought maybe you were worth X less 50 million or something like that. You're like, oh, maybe I can conquer the world. We're going to be all things to all people and have infinite capital to meet that solution. And again, the main realization that I've come to for my community and my business is we can't be all things to all people. We need to be very, very specific, and we need to be useful. And again, what happens when you do that? So for us, what is that realization? If you're out there listening, we're for revenue executives. If you're at a high growth company, it's VP and above. And if you are at a larger company like Oracle, maybe senior director and above. But we're really for people that are running sales, marketing, customer success. And for a time, we thought we were going to be for everything. We were going to be for finance and for all kinds of different seniorities. And the realization for me is we have to be very specific about who we are, what we do, who we serve, and then what's the solution that we deliver. And then let's look for complementary solutions that can help us meet the goal of the customer, but do so in a non-competitive way. And again, that's why we're partnered up with Crossbeam. That's why we're partnered up with partnership leaders, because we just I generally view the more places I charge money, the more people I'm trying to serve, the more competitors I have. I'm trying to limit my competitive set to a field of play that I can win on. And if I'm too broadly defining my competitive set, then I can't win, because I'm trying to be all things to all people. So that's been my personal journey. And again, I'm also, when it comes to direct outbound sales, I still believe there's a role for it, but I just believe fundamentally that this idea that we need, a team of 100 sellers, only half of whom are going to attain quota. And in fact, some of our data shows that it's only 30% of people are attaining quota right now. That doesn't work. And if I'm going to have an outbound sales team, I want it to be small enough so that I can send all of my best leads to a group of people that buyers want to talk to, that can close the business and deliver efficiency. And even now I'm getting text messages every day from CROs and VPs of sales that are saying, I shrank the team from, this doesn't mean that layoffs or reorgs are good or anything like that, but it does mean that, I'm getting text messages from people saying, I have 2 sellers when I used to have 10, and they're 3 times as productive as the group of 10. And I have even charts in my text messages showing me that. So I think that, again, what we're looking for is what's the way that the buyer wants to buy that is cheap, efficient, and again, if you're going to have a conversation, then I want my buyers, my customers, I want them to want to talk to my sellers, because my sellers are teaching them something about the world in a challenger style way, as opposed to just being order takers, because I don't think that works anymore.
So I'll chime in with a little bit of color. So Sam invited us to present at his CEO Summit. I present about partnerships. 90 CEOs are like, what the heck is this? We only know channels. We don't get it. What else can you do? Doug Landis, one of the investors in a partner sitting there, they're like, why aren't you talking about PRM, right? And then I walk off and Sam goes, this is interesting. Maybe I just need to grow slower, but happier, So that is actually, I've shared this story because as we speak to revenue leaders, there is like a real life transformation happening. And for a revenue leader to say, I'm just going to grow slower, but more efficient is actually like a change that needs to happen. And it goes against all of their nature, right? But let's come back to Bob, right? Bob. So one of the things that we hear is, especially even in partnership leaders, is, well, if this is efficient and this motion is efficient, why aren't more CFOs coming out and talking about this? Why are all of us only talking about it?
Yeah, this is an awesome question, and I think one that is kind of like your classic crossing the chasm style answer that I'm happy to kind of dive into. So, there's if you think about empathizing with CFOs and kind of what their mandates are, I think that there's a lot that boils down to the brass tacks of a few different things. One of them is things that are extremely measurable that ultimately are very downstream from the actual tactics and strategies getting deployed, right? Like by the time you get to a point where you are measuring the absolute burn of the business, where you're measuring CAC ratios, where you're measuring things that are kind of the summation of the performance of the business as a whole, you've gotten to a point where you basically need to be downstream from these things being implemented and rolled out and quantified and scaled to a point where they actually represent some meaningful proportion of the activity going on inside the organization. And then individual CFOs inside of companies take notice, and then it kind of gets into the zeitgeist of the CEO or the CFO communities and kind of best practices and awareness that's out there. And I think the honest answer is that we're early. And the people that are doing this extremely well are ones who sit on the beginning part of that crossing the chasm curve, where they are these early adopters who have figured out how to capture the arbitrage that exists inside of this new set of motions. And just like in the beginning, right? Like I was talking about, the challenging situation around traditional outbound sales. Many of us probably remember the 2010, 2011 era when like Aaron Ross's book, Predictable Revenue, came out and everybody on the planet read it. And when you got your hands on it, it felt like you've been given the cheat codes, right? And there was something in there because the first 10% of companies that used that strategy had this explosive, completely non-representative growth that they experienced because they were early adopters of it and beneficiaries of it. And by the time it made its way into kind of the popular consensus and like entire software categories had been built around the delivery of this stuff, it was all downstream enough that you started to actually lose some of those, early emergent benefits. And I think we're in a similar phase now with these ELG strategies. The only difference being that it's not a zero-sum game, right? Unlike the average inbox or voicemail box of a person you might reach out to with a cold outbound strategy, for all the reasons I listed before, these partner-driven strategies actually scale, and they scale in a positive sum manner among the people that do them. So that's a really big piece. I'd say the other thing I'll just tack on, because I'm a huge data nerd, is we're missing data here. That's absolutely essential, which all boils back down to attribution. And there is this historical challenge that's existed within partnership technology, where if you're just talking about PRMs, then the only way to attribute revenue dollars to partners is by somebody filling out a lead form in a PRM and registering a deal, right? And that deal having been thrown over the wall. And it does very little to actually capture the impact and lift that comes out of partner ecosystems, driven by basically partner influence, whether it's from a channel impact or a technology partner impact or a marketplace impact, or the kind of less directly singular one-to-one style connectivity that exists between two partners. So, in the traditional math, if the partner is not the only exclusive single touch source of a piece of revenue, then the partner ecosystem is typically not getting any kind of credit or recognition for it. But in a lot of these modern strategies, not only are you getting a lot more of that, but in addition, you're getting a much more quantifiable, easy to identify and calculate connectivity between larger deal sizes, higher win rates, faster closes, and the presence of these deals inside of your ecosystem at large, whether it's that your partners are already working with them, they're influencing or helping co-sell them, or some other playbook. And the more of that data we get, the more that we can actually attach ROI stories back to the ecosystem and then land on that CFO's desk to kind of make that movement happen. So I think my argument would just be, it's coming. The data is there in the early adopters, and it's very, very strong. It's just a question of whether you're going to be an early adopter of this stuff or kind of pick it up more when it hits the mainstream in the years to come.
Yeah, I would just chime in on that, Asher, that exactly to Bob's point, I think related to the fact that it's early, there's just a misconception and a misunderstanding about what effective partner relationship management is, what effective ecosystem-led growth is. And I can speak for myself when for most of the time, to your point about the CEO summit, when we were in Miami next year in Scottsdale, by the way, but when we were in Miami,
are tickets on sale?
They are on sale. I thought before getting to know both of you, your companies, and this community, what I thought partnerships meant was that I would pay a quota relief against your sellers to sell my product. And I think that's and I realized when talking to a bunch of ecosystem and partnership folks, including Chris Samila, that no, it's not. You don't even need to pay spiffs because of the improved LTV and improved retention of co-selling strategies, leveraging multiple products. And so my point is that I still think there's just a lot of misunderstanding around the right way to instrument and architect an ecosystem-led growth strategy. And I think relatedly, exactly to what Bob was saying, for a CFO or even a VP of sales, it's a known quantity to say, I'm going to hire this account executive, even if they don't hit their attainment, like I know that I will get revenue on some predictable timeline, even if it's not very much and not worth it. And I think the partnership, effective partner relationship management and ecosystem relationship management requires a longer term view. Then it's not just, I'll give 10% referral fee to the other person's seller so that they'll introduce my product. It's much more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so just to answer my own question, sometimes we also forget there is the journey of the partnership leader themselves. And a lot of time has been spent coaching sales leaders and marketing leaders to get to the level that they can hold a conversation with the CFO and really nail it. I don't believe that the same amount of time or energy or the resources have been produced to help the partnership leader elevate themselves to that level, right? And that's one of the challenges we're taking on, of course, with the support of both of you. And that's one part of it. The second piece is coming across very in a joint manner where when things are co-sell, we just need to call them what they are, right? Versus like create these like different versions of the truth, as I would say. As we were preparing for this panel, right, like I actually asked in PL, why can't we get results from partnerships within 1 quarter? And there were 30 answers to that. And as a follow-up to this, I can actually like send the answers to everybody. But the net was, if the direct sales motion isn't getting a deal in 30 days, a partner sales motion is not going to get a deal in 30 days. That was like literally the answer. But again, it would be good to learn from you guys.
Well, I mean, if you're asking me, that I think you just made the point. The whole point for me of partnership-led or ecosystem-led is you have to take a longer-term view of the customer relationship and of the path to market. And if you want to just go hit somebody over the head with a hammer, fine, but it's working less and less well, and they're less and less responsive. So whether by necessity or by choice, you're going to have to figure out a path to market. It may take longer, but it'll be a more durable, longer-term relationship with the customer over time. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I'd also add there's one of the elephants in the room here is just that partnerships and ecosystems, like it or not, and convenient for us all or not, have reputational inertia working against them. There is decades of history inside of enterprise organizations where partnerships is a little bit of, unfortunately, like an eye roll arm of the org chart. It's a place where, due to all of the lack of data that I described before, you have this sense internally that we're scared to completely get rid of it or not have it because we don't know what's going to come apart if we get rid of it, but we lack the quantified upside to be able to invest heavily or systemically in it. And then it becomes a little bit of like an elephant burial ground, right? Of former sales reps who don't want to carry quota anymore, but are too strategically important to the company to let go to another place. Or how many times have we seen co-founders of a startup where they didn't quite scale into kind of C-level operational roles, but their Rolodex is absolutely incredible and strategic to the company, so they kind of get slapped into like the head of partnerships role or the VP of partnerships role, right? You see a lot of this where partnerships becomes a little bit of this placeholder for the things that are amorphous and difficult to define and invest in and create scalability around. And because of that, a lot of people that have come up in revenue organizations are skeptical of partnerships, and rightfully so, because if you've got 20 years of experience, you probably spent 18 of those years in an organization where the partner team was this expensive, amorphous unit inside of the company that, with the exception of like real efficient, awesome pure play channel partner orgs, which have made blockbuster results in some places. The rest, the broader like ecosystem partnering play is just squishy. And we have to overcome that because you've got a lot of people that are in decision-making positions who have kind of been conditioned to think that partnerships is just not where it's at. And it's fun and exciting to see that changing in real time in front of us, even over a span of a very small number of years. But that is part of what we're up against.
100%. And that's why I think, like aligning ourselves all together and really focusing not just on the company journeys, but the person journeys as well, because the partnership people are having their own journey. The sales and marketing leaders are having their own journey. The tech companies are all having their own journey. But if you combine it together and make a full push, I believe you can get to very scalable and efficient growth. The last question I'll ask is, does it have to be one or the other? Can like all of these like X-led growth strategies all exist together, or what happens? What's your viewpoint?
I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think a sophisticated revenue machine understands different costs of acquisition across different channels and instruments them properly. And I think different channels are going to work differently at different times in your growth, and they're going to produce different results. And there may be even configurations of your ecosystem strategy that need to evolve over time. So I don't think it's what I've learned as a CEO is almost there are very few things that are all or nothing. It's typically degrees of effectiveness and degrees of efficiency. But I think the last thing I'll say is related to, the two of you is the work that you both are embarked on and everybody in the space is to help us make it more scientific and more predictable, even if it's longer. But I think that's the big opportunity. The big opportunity is to take it from, the place where the lost co-founder goes, to be put out to pasture and to turn it into a discipline that has defined categories, that has defined KPIs, and that has more predictability around it. And I think that's entirely possible. And again, I think data is probably, the leading edge of that movement, which is why Crossbeam is such an important company.
Bob?
Couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of excitement that we all share around this, and it all just ends up boiling down to this combination of leaning in when we see opportunities for the biggest wins and all working together to tell those stories. And frankly, using the same language to tell those stories, right? When we talk about the ecosystem-led growth, it's less in service of saying the ecosystems are leading and therefore product can't lead and sales can't lead. I agree that it takes a village approach and very necessary that these things are complementary. It's instead just to provide more of a framework for kind of a shared understanding and vocabulary about what this stuff actually is. And part of that is part of the challenge, right? Of the idea of using partnerships to grow is not new, but the decades of history around how people have accomplished that is so incredibly diverse that we need to unify everybody on what these terms are and these definitions are. And that's part of the work that we try to do in pulling folks together under this umbrella.
So I'll leave everybody with one thing, right? As we go through this transformation, the answer to who should own partnerships is whoever cares about it the most. Because when SDRs were going through the same journey, it was the same answer, and they got to this level of scientificness, if that's a word, that we are all used to today. All right, this was great. Thank you so much, both for your partnership and to your support and joining this session. If anybody has any questions, and if you disagree with something, please feel free to hit us all up. We're here for you. You have a home with all of us, and we're here to support you. And Bob, Sam, thank you so much. And Tackle team, thank you so much for putting this event on.
Yeah, thanks to Tackle. What a great company. Proud to partner with them. Proud to work with both of you. I'll see all of you soon. Bob, I'll see you in San Diego, if not sooner.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you to Tackle and all the teams supporting this event. This has been really awesome. And yeah, we'll see you at Supernode in June.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers.